Today I am turning one of the most basic, humble quilt blocks, the Snowball, into a boho style quilted pillow. And in order to turn something so simple into something so eclectic and arty and free-spirited, we're going to have to pay attention to some details. So join me today. By the end of this video, you are going to be able to create your own unique, carefree, je ne sais quoi, freewheeling pillow in boho style using basic patchwork. So for this quilted pillow project today, our main fabric that I'm using as the backing of the pillow, the inspiration fabric, was already chosen. And it's this beautiful floral. This is sort of a retro-looking floral from Floral Retrospective by Anna Maria Horner. And very bright, very boho. And because snowballs are such a classic, simple block, I decided to get very not simple with my fabrics. We're going to go very boho, very floral. We're going to mix our wild colors and our big florals. And let me show you the variety of fabrics that we have going on here. And then we've got, as our background fabric, this icy mint. So I'll show you that next to it. This is an art gallery fabric. And our first step with this very simple block is just going to be to cut our pieces. So let's look at our fabrics on the cutting table and get going. So here is our beautiful floral print. And I went with this icy mint in Art Gallery Pure Solids because it doesn't exactly match these, but it's going to be light, so it's going to give me some contrast with a wide variety of different prints, which is good because I'm about to use a wide variety of different prints. So like I said, because we're doing a very simple block today, we're doing snowball blocks, the real visual interest is going to be whatever print fabrics we choose in those snowballs. So I went with some very busy prints. So we want this to have a real boho vibe, which to me means kind of curated and collected, you know, like you've been on a lot of crazy adventures and you've been collecting textiles from all of the places you've gone and the interesting things you've seen. And like a museum or like a bookshelf, you are just gathering these things over time. And these are not really gathered over time, except in the way that I gather fabric prints over time. But they are all the same designer, so they're going to have kind of that curated look, but they're all very different, very standalone prints, very bold. So they're going to have a real museum quality to them, I think. You know, that's the look I'm going for, at least. A curated boho look. My snowballs today are going to be 4.5 inches, which finishes at 4 inches per block. So I'm going to want 25 of them because I think that gives me about a 20-inch pillow, and I think that's a pretty good quilted pillow size. That's a good, comfortable size, and you're going to be able to see all of these crazy prints. I took some charm squares. I cut from all of these, and I came up with this rainbow of prints. So these are 25 4.5-inch squares. And then from the icy mint to make snowballs that are 4.5 inches, I went with 1 3/4-inch squares of background fabric. And because you need one for every corner, that means I needed 100 1 3/4-inch squares of icy mint. Boom, done. Okay, sewing machine view. Everybody's favorite view, except mine maybe. This is very inconvenient. So we've got our 4.5-inch squares, and we're going to snowball all 4 corners, by which I mean we're going to stitch and flip. So if you've never done a stitch and flip before, we've got our background squares. You can either draw a little line diagonally and then stitch right on that line, or you can use quarter seam tape like I have here, where this red line on this washi tape is lined up with my needle, and I just have to line up the corners of my block, that red line, and I can sew a straight line from corner to corner without having to mark it. Easy breezy, so I'm going to do that. And actually, I am going to chain piece all of these. I'm certainly not going to go block by block like this, but for the purposes of this video, let's just do this one little corner. So now I've got it all stitched along the diagonal. I'm going to go 1/4 inch away and just trim it off. So now that 1/4 inch beyond the seam is my seam allowance, and I'm going to press it open with my iron, but right now I'm just going to do it with my finger. And now we've got one little snowballed corner. So I've sewn it on, stitched it, then I'm going to flip it. And you can press it seams open, you can press it towards the darker fabric. I do not care. It does not matter. I do them open, but it's personal taste, So I'm just going to do all of my upper right corners, all of my bottom right corners, all of my bottom left corners, and then all of my top left corners for all 25, right? 25. All 25 blocks. All right, I got my 4.5-inch squares. I got my 1 3/4 inch background squares. I'm ready to snowball these corners. I got 2 buttons unbuttoned, so you can tell I'm about to get crazy with a little time lapse. Let's do this, and let's do it really fast. Now all of my corners have been snowballed, and I'm just cutting off the little excess on every corner. Everything about quilting takes forever. Okay, I've got them all pieced together, and I've put them in a layout that I like, which of course is as close to a rainbow as I could get with these sort of eclectic multicolored prints. But I love snowball blocks because instead of just making like basic square patchwork, every block is rounder and cuter, and it's going to be shaped like a little octagon, so it looks more like a gem, because each one is a little tiny gem. Yeah, so I'm going to just piece these together, and I'm going to use web piecing, which I talked about before. But just as a reminder, when you are piecing just a basic grid of blocks like this, web piecing is when I'm just going to pull each of these down. I'm making a little stack of each column, and I'm going to piece together my first 2 columns straight down without cutting my thread, without pressing them together. Then I'm going to pull my next column and keep it all in order, and I'm going to piece that to my first 2. And then I'm going to go through and piece the next one. And it's called web piecing because if you don't cut the thread, you're going to end up with all of these pieced together, connected by thread. So you've got like this web of a grid that you can then press your rows and then piece them together too. Gonna do that. We'll be all done. We'll be ready to quilt. Yay! Boom. Done. So, oops, I hit the close-up button and boom, ready for my close-up. So this is our bejeweled Snowball boho quilt top. And And now it's ready to get basted and ready to be quilted. So I don't want to baste it onto my beautiful inspiration fabric because this is the part that we want to use for the pillow backing. But I picked an equally beautiful, even though it's not going to show, quilt back. So I'm going to baste it. I have 22 inches because this is going to be a 20-inch pillow. I've got 22 inches of a fabric and batting, and they're basted together. I'm going to baste this on top, which is just to sandwich them together. And then it's going to be ready to quilt. I wanted to lean in to the boho vibes to quilt this one. So that means I want it to look storied and artsy and well-traveled and unique. So I thought it would be nice to have some sashiko style big stitch quilting in a nice dark thread so it really stands out. But I don't hand quilt. I'm not that dexterous. So what I do have is a sashiko machine. I have a Baby Lock Sashiko 2 quilting machine, which is a unique machine that does exactly one thing, which is mimic the look of big stitch hand quilting. And it does it quite well. So we're going to do a little faux hand stitching on our boho pillow. Let's take a look. So here is my beautiful, crazy sashiko machine. It does one thing, and it does it well. It does big stitch quilting that mimics the look of hand sashiko. So this is a Baby Lock machine. I don't know if anyone else makes them. I don't think so. But it does not have a top thread. It only has a bobbin thread. And it pulls the bobbin thread up and winds it around and then puts it back down and winds it around. And I'll show you what it looks like when it's making its little stitches. But I'm using this deep teal because I thought that it would really set off the colors in this quilt and be really contrasting with this light turquoise background. And I think it's going to look amazing. Because if you're going to make a big stitch, you want it to show. So we're going to make sure that it shows. So let's come around. This chair is very squeaky. But let's come around and show you this machine. All right. So I get to set how long my stitches are with my stitch length, and I've got it at just about the middle, and then how far apart they're spaced, which is what gives it that unique sort of hand-stitched look. You can always set your stitch length on your regular domestic machine, but you don't get to say how far apart those stitches are. So I'm going to put them, I'm going to say 4. So they're pretty far apart. Turn it on. Hopefully you can see this machine as it jumps around. There it goes. It picks up the thread, and I'm going to take it really slowly. Put my needle down so that I can pivot. I'm just kind of going to go down the rows, across the snowballs, and then back up so that you can see the big stitches in every diamond. Look at her go. Just going slow so that it stops right where I want it to. Alright, let's turn that off. Oh, the squeaking of my chair is driving me bananas. Alright, and you can see what it looks like, how it mimics that big stitch. And the great part is that if you make a mistake, that only accentuates the hand-stitched look. So make a lot of mistakes. That's the way to go. Okay, she is complete. I love her. The art is in the details on this one. Look at that big stitch quilting. Look at those wild prints. And I think she really does justice to this inspiration fabric. which is just as artsy and just as storied. So I really hope that you have found some inspiration to put a little something special, put your own magic spin on a crazy simple block today, our little snowballs.